The trick-or-treating is over, and now you can finally get back to normal. Welcome to Fantasy Football Live. If you're like me, that means that Mariah Carey's already been de-iced, and you got the Christmas music going. Let's go! We got 90 minutes of full chaos coming at you. I'm Jason Fitz, hanging out with Matt Harmon, Chris Allen, Justin Boone. It took me less than 90 seconds to discuss the entire panel with my love of Christmas music. Go ahead, Harmon. How are we feeling this morning?
I was feeling great until you broke that one out. It's way too early for Christmas music. By the way, just for the folks watching, the fantasy football fans, the football fans out there, let's just take a deep breath here for a second. I feel like we've gone really fast here the last few weeks. Things have really accelerated. We've arrived at week 9. Things are going to slow down here as we get into that holiday season, and we got to remember, this is a marathon here to get to the end of the season, to get to your fantasy championship. So Fitz is already looking ahead to freaking Christmas. I'm saying try to stay grounded in the moment, people. Let's be serious here.
All I'm saying is now you can't sing any Christmas song that says, I wish it was Christmas every day. You obviously don't. Chris Allen, what do you got for us? How you feeling this morning?
Well, if my whiteboard is any indication, I'm prediction pain for my Cincinnati Bengals, but still, I'm with Harmon. We are now in week 9. It has been 2 months of action, but we need all of our energy to get through this last half of the fantasy season, the regular football season. But I believe we can all band together, we can unify and give that collective energy to each other so we can make it through. Because if we can all get together and all agree that you can beat quarters coverage over the top like we have over the past week, then we can definitely get together and make it through these next 9-ish weeks or so of football.
Well, the amount of Madden people that have had plenty to say about quarters over the top. Justin Boone, the show is collectively giving you a hug today. Should be noted, you are a noted Blue Jays fan. Last night was a tough night. We love you. We hope you're feeling okay. How we doing, buddy?
Well, I mean, if Chris's whiteboard is prediction pain, I could tell you result pain for me from that Blue Jays series. Very, very tough one. I guess the only silver lining is now the baseball playoffs are over. I don't have to stay up until 3 a.m. watching any 18-inning games, and I can just focus on football now and make sure that everyone that follows us is getting into the fantasy playoffs and hopefully getting a pretty good shot to win a fantasy championship this year. So I'm trying to find the silver lining here, guys. But yeah, it's a tough one. We are mourning in the Boone household today.
Look, the viewers are the winners here, though, because if the Blue Jays had won and you were the fan that I want you to be, you'd still be drunk for the show. So it makes the show better by the time it's all said and done. All right, you guys can get involved. Hashtag AskFFL. That's the way you get in on Twitter X. You can send your last-minute roster questions. We are an hour and a half from kickoff as we speak, just 8 games in the early window. So let's get a look at the inactives list just being announced. Get you caught up on what you need to know early on. Brock Purdy, inactive. Ramondre Stevenson, inactive. DeAndre Swift, inactive. Dalton Schultz, though, is going to be active. Let's take a look at the afternoon slate for later in the day. And that list looks like Isaiah Pacheco out. Alvin Kamara expected to play. Rashid Shaheed expected to play. Cooper Kupp questionable. We will keep you updated with any other news that we get across the course of the morning, but let's get to what we are watching in week 9. Chris Allen, let's go to you first. What do you got your eyes on for week 9 that you are pumped about?
So we've got 3 significant fantasy players set to return here in week 9. One of them being wide receiver Puka Nacua for the Rams. Of course, got J.J. McCarthy under center for the Vikings again. And your Raiders, Fitzy, I mean, they get Brock Bowers back. But let's start with Puka Nacua, because over the first 5 weeks of the season before Nacua went down with the ankle injury, it was really him and Jackson Smith and Jigba battling for that wide receiver 1 spot. And few other receivers could really boast the level of volume and opportunity they were getting within their offenses. Nacua was first in target rate at 35%, had the most yards in the league before his injury at 588. And of course, from fantasy standpoint, I mean, he was the wide receiver 1, 26.8 PPR points per game. Now he gets to face the Saints defense. Now in this one, of course, there are going to be a little bit of systemic risk with the fighting Tyler Shucks coming to Los Angeles to play against the Rams because of how many dropbacks we could really see for the Rams once they get into the second half. But now moving on to the Vikings, again, we're talking about a game with potential risk to it because of folks that are rostering Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. They do have to have some concern about J.J. McCarthy being back because in his first 2 starts, was less of a passer than we wanted for JJ McCarthy coming into his second season. Just 150 passing yards per game as compared to the 240 for Carson Wentz. And he also was 33rd out of 34 qualifiers in completion percentage over expected. But let's hope that the time away has helped him to get more in sync with his receivers. But going up against the Lions defense now, they've had a chance to have a bye. Also 9th in pressure rate. It should have the potential for, let's say, a tough matchup for McCarthy to come back to. But if you've got Justin Jefferson and Addison down the field, potentially good things can happen. But of course, now finally switching over to the Raiders, Brock Bowers coming back for them. Again, he was one of the top receivers for that passing option before the PCL injury. 65.8% of the routes in that first week, 5th in target rate, and facing a Jags defense that has been somewhat susceptible to tight ends. I do think that there's a chance for all of the pass catching options for the Raiders start to tick back into the regular slot. So those are the 3 guys that I'm really looking forward to seeing back in the lineup for week 9. I'm sure fantasy managers can say the same.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see Brock Bowers for what it's worth. I'm going to get a little bit of hope today. Matt Harmon, what do you got your eyes on for this week?
Yeah, I'll talk about another couple of players coming back from injury as well. The Falcons are getting back Michael Penix and Drake London, and I think last week's game was enough for us to realize we don't need any curiosity about the Kirk Cousins-led Atlanta Falcons, any theories about him potentially making this offense better than Michael Penix. I think those are kind of out the window. But more importantly, last week was a big reminder of Drake London is the guy in this offense. He is so critically important, and it feels like sometimes the Falcons themselves forget about this. Michael Penix has had 4 games out of his 9 career starts with an adjusted yards per attempt over 7.0, so like a good quality productive game, that sort of benchmark. Drake London's target totals in those games were 18, 16, 15, and 10. Perhaps I'm oversimplifying it here, but just throw the football to your good player should be the answer for this team as it tries to get Penix back on track following an injury, as they try to kind of find themselves in this game in particular. They're going to face a New England defense that you can beat on the back end, but they're very man coverage heavy. The Falcons have struggled throwing against man coverage this year. I think the guy to target is your best player in the passing game. Let's consolidate the usage around him. That's just been, when the Falcons have been good on offense, that has been the way they've gotten it done. So I'm hoping to see a lot of Drake London in this matchup this week.
Love that call by you. Look, I'm going to take yet another victory lap, as I have been for months, for telling everybody first that the Colts were going to be the AFC South champions and go to the playoffs this year. This is a weekend where, man, saddle them up. You got them, play them, throw them all in. This Colts offense, by the way, number 1 in points in the NFL, number 1 yards in the NFL, and number 1 in yards per play in the NFL. How good has the Colts offense been so far this year? The Colts offense has been so good that if you pull up ESPN and you look at punting statistics, they're not even listed because you have to average 2.5 punts per game to make the list. And the Colts don't punt 2.5 times per game. And now they're about to take on the high-priced Steelers defense that has become hot garbage in front of our very eyes. It is melting and it is falling apart. Today is going to be a statement game for the Indianapolis Colts offense. I believe the Colts offense by themselves could hit the over in this game. That's how big it's going to be. So if you got Colts, saddle them up and start trash talking now. I usually don't support trash talking till it's done. Today you got the Steelers. You're going to win big. Boone, what do you got your eyes on in week 9?
I'm keeping an eye on all these backfields that are in flux right now. We got a bunch of them, right? Like the Patriots, the Chiefs, the Bears, the list goes on and on. I mean, you start with the Patriots. We're finally going to get a look at Travion Henderson as the lead back in this offense. It took a couple of injuries to make that happen. It took Ramondre Stevenson being out and Antonio Gibson being done for the year. And now we're going to get to see Henderson in the lead role and whether he can handle it. And after this game, I think the Patriots are going to make a decision on whether they need to go trade for someone else potentially, or whether they can roll with Henderson as the lead guy. So that's going to be really exciting. The Chiefs, it's kind of boring. It's going to be Kareem Hunt taking over. And we saw last year, he had a pretty extended stretch as the starter. He was the RB15 in fantasy points per game from week 3 to week 12 when he was the guy there. I think we're going to see something similar again. And we know the Bills not great against the run. So I actually think this is a pretty good spot for him. And then you just keep going, right? Kyle Monangai for the Bears. DeAndre Swift gets ruled out on Friday. Monangai is going to get his shot. He's been someone that kind of started the year off slow, really has started to come on the last few weeks. Now he gets a great matchup as well. So he's somebody you can put in your lineup. And I mean, the Giants, Tyron Tracy Jr., he's going to be the starter this week now that Cam Scatterbo is out for the year. We've seen him step into a lead role and do it last season. He's going to get a shot to do it again. Rico Dowdle, we have word that Rico Dowdle is going to get more snaps, more touches than Chuba Hubbard probably this week. It's what we're getting used to now as the year goes on, the longer season. We see a lot of running back injuries. We have to adapt along the way. And we're going to see more, unfortunately, as the season goes along. So that's why people got to stay on top of this stuff, pick up these guys throughout the week, keep an eye on all of our rankings. And it's one of the most fun things in fantasy, even though it's unfortunate that it came with a lot of injuries.
Speaking of rankings, Boone is our resident rankings expert. He's got to get them tweaked. So he's got to get that in before kickoff. So he gets a little time off. He'll be back to break it all down in a little bit. In the meantime, the rest of us will keep plowing along, and we'll get to some last-minute pickups for Week 9. These are guys that are out there that you can still grab that maybe you can put in right away. Matt Harmon, who's on your mind?
Oh, man, I'm excited to talk about Torrey Horton because we got word from Adam Schefter last night that Cooper Kupp is unlikely to play in the Sunday night game against Washington. He's a 30-plus-year-old receiver with a hamstring injury. I think it's more likely he misses multiple games than he plays this week. So Torrey Horton's a guy that you can play potentially this week, and is a guy I think to just be on your radar as one of these second half of the year rookie receivers who takes flight. That is something that we see every single year, especially guys that are drafted on day 2, day 3. They start to get more opportunities and they begin to rise in the pecking order. And Horton was already one of my favorite sleepers from this draft class. Fitz, you remember talking about this with me back in April when we did the draft show. He was a guy I really liked. He ends up going on day 3 because of an injury, not because of his talent. He's more of like a round 2 talent player. And it's mostly been a positive sign for him that he earned a sizable role with the team coming out of training camp. He's had splash plays. He's had rookie mistakes, as you'd expect. But he's about to get a big opportunity this week because I thought it was kind of always unlikely that he would pass up Cooper Kupp just straight up because of play, because Kupp is really important to their run game, even if he's not that productive as a receiver. However, now he's going to take that second receiver spot for a team that is 31st in the NFL in 11 personnel rate. So the wide receivers are going to be the funnel target for this team, and they're not going to get like a third receiver involved here. So Jackson Smith-Njigba, of course, going to have a big night on Sunday night here, but I think Torrey Horton's a guy that you can pick up, potentially play if you're really desperate. You have multiple flex spots, and also could be just somebody that rises over the second half of the year with an opportunity this week.
You're right. You saw that all the way back in the draft. You've been right a lot on that. Chris, what do you got? What's a last-minute pickup for you?
So for me, I'm looking at the Giants passing game, and unfortunately, without Cam Scatterbo in the lineup for Jackson Dart, let's hope he turns to a bit farther downfield and looks to wide receiver Darius Slayton in this matchup going up against the 49ers. And now Slayton, who's also returning from a hamstring injury, it was good to see him at least be out there on the field and be somewhat productive despite some of the chaos going around the Giants passing game. In his first game back, 71% of the team's routes, 24% target share, and 30% of the air yards. And we did actually see Jackson Dart try him deep a couple of times on some go routes. They just weren't on the same page yet. But let's assume this week now, with a little bit of time to get back in sync, they should have that chance to really try and light up this 49ers defense that we just watched CJ Stroud have one of his better passing games against back in week 8. And now with 2 more defensive linemen out for San Francisco, I mean, they're really trying to create pressure as much as they can. They sent blitzes or 5 or more defenders on 31% of Stroud's dropbacks in week 8, trying to get home as quickly as possible, but it just wasn't happening. So when you do that and when you add more defenders there, the math changes in the fact that you have fewer guys on the back end to really help with some of that coverage downfield. So while Jackson Dart has been holding on to the ball a bit longer than I'd like, which could lead to a couple of sacks, if he does have that amount of time to operate behind the Giants' offensive line, it should lend itself to some of those deeper shots to a guy like Darius Slayton. So if there is going to be a way to kind of speed things up and you need that punch on your roster, Darius Slayton should be that guy that you'll need in week 9.
All right, I love that. We'll keep our eye on more pickups we got for you. In the meantime, let's get to check the chat. Plenty of comments coming in here, including Stuart GB, who says missing the Halloween costume this week. Do you know what, Stuart? I'm missing the Halloween costume this week, too. Although, I'll admit, it's a little easier to do this show not dressed as an inflatable zebra, I do think. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think we could have convinced Harmon to do it week 2. All right, we'll get the next one. We'll go to the next one. The next one comes in saying, #AskFFL. Should I start Spears or JCM in my flex spot and have PPR? I'm using an underdog and need some big points this week. Harmon, what do you got for big points?
Oh man, yeah. This is just not one of those spots where JCM sets up to be a really productive player. He needs this team to have a lead. He needs this team to be in positive game scripts. That being said, I think if one of these guys is going to have the big point week here, I do think it's JCM, just because he's more likely to be involved at the goal line. And if Washington is able to get this game into a high-scoring affair, he's at least in position to score those touchdowns. So for Spears, I think if it was full PPR, I might go his direction, but half PPR, I'll side with JCM on this one.
All right, let's get to the next question in the chat. The next question is it crazy? This is Nate Deasy, who says, crazy to play Monangai over London? What do you think, Chris?
I think it is a little crazy to play Monangai over London. I understand the question, though, because of the setup and potential volume for Monangai in playing against my Bengals defense, which allows everybody to get into the end zone. So I get it. But for the points that Harmon just laid out for how important he is, not just to the passing game, but the running game and the volume we should see for Drake London, I'll still have him over Monangai. But I understand the question, but I'm still going Drake London for this week.
Let's get another one in. This one comes from Ryan Burns. Flattery will get you everywhere. He says, hey, guys, love the show. I watch you guys every week. Thanks, Ryan. And all the shows throughout the week. Thanks even more, Ryan. I need to start 2 half PPR, Henderson, Myers, Addison, or Jennings. Right, Harmon, help him out. He watches all the time. Let's get him the love. 2 half PPR.
God, I hate it, Ryan, that you're such a dedicated fan and follower, and I feel so conflicted on all 4 of these players. I wish I had like a confident answer to come in here and be like, yep, thanks for watching all the shows. Bang, bang, these are the answers. Let's keep it moving. I think this one's really tight. I do think Henderson is really interesting with no Stevenson. I'm not convinced that he comes out here and he's the immediate lead back for this team. That being said, I really like the way they got him going on some of the pitches and toss plays last week, and that should profile pretty well against the Falcons defense. That's how you beat them. You want to rush on the edge. You want to win with speed. I think the Patriots can do that, especially in their gap scheme that Henderson is a good fit on. So I think I'm probably going to go with Henderson for one of the spots. And, oh, God, it feels gross to say Jacoby Myers coming off an injury. It feels even less exciting to say Jordan Addison. So I actually think this might be a good week to go back to Juwan Jennings, who's been a little hit or miss this year. But, again, no Ricky Pearsall. Brandon Ayuk still on the way back. I think this is a good week to go back to Juwan Jennings with Mac Jones under center.
It's a good week to get back to Bills and Chiefs. Coming up next, it's always circled on the calendar for the 10th time since 2010. 2 juggernauts in the AFC taking each other on. It'll be a fantasy feast. We'll break down who we think can come out there and absolutely eat. We'll tell you about it next. It's this year's best game in the history of the NFL because it happens every year and we always overhype it. It's time to get ready for it. FFL. I'm Jason Fitz with Matt Harmon, Chris Allen, and the game of the weekend, Chiefs-Bills. We see this every year. Chiefs favored by 2. This time it's in New York. Over and under on it's 52.5. Let's take a look at somebody we think could feast throughout the course of this. Matt Harmon, who's going to go out and eat?
Yeah, let me get you excited about Kareem Hunt in a matchup with two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. As Boone said at the top, I actually am not really here to advocate that it's going to be exciting or whatever to place Kareem Hunt in your fantasy lineup, but I am here to advocate that it's probably going to work out for you. It's going to be a good idea to do it. The Chiefs' run game is not explosive. It's definitely not exciting, but it is effective and keeps the offense moving down the field. Kansas City has the lowest rate of runs that go for negative or 0 yards this season. They're the only team under 10%. The problem from a fantasy standpoint has been how split up the backfield is. So no Pacheco in this game. I think it's going to consolidate around Kareem Hunt. Rookie Brashard Smith is exciting, but he's more of a design touches player than a true base back. So to me, Kareem Hunt, who's actually been pretty effective this year, zone concept runs, according to fantasy points data, 4.7 yards per attempt. He's actually top 8 in gap run success rate as well. So regardless of the concept, especially in short yardage, he's been able to just plow forward for a few yards. And this Bills run defense has been a problem all year, especially when teams can get physical with them. I think Kansas City's interior offensive line can get that job done. So with Mahomes and Rashee Rice likely moving the football down the field against zone coverage, look for Kareem Hunt to plunge in at least yet another goal line touchdown in this game.
Love that. I'll go to Travis Kelce and just ask why we always forget about Kelce. And look, there's so much proof of concept now in Kelce against the Bills. This is the 8th time in his career he's taken on the Buffalo Bills. In those, this would be the 9th time. In his 8 games, 36 catches for 448 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's basically half the season's worth of work. So if you played him every single week, you'd be a 1,000-yard receiver. Like, Kelce against the Bills works. It works for 4 or 5 catches a game. It works for a touchdown every other game. This is the most dynamic version of the Kansas City offense we've seen in years with Rashee Rice, which is why it's going to create more openings for Travis Kelce, which is why Travis Kelce is going to continue to do Travis Kelce things. Travis Kelce was never washed, and he's not suddenly some great player that he wasn't 3 weeks ago. It's just the offense is built differently when they are firing on all cylinders, and Kelce is going to do Kelce things. It's pretty simple for me. Chris, what do you got in this one?
So you guys are all on the Chiefs. I'll at least flip it over to Buffalo and see if there's anything that we can get outside of course, the core plays, which are Josh Allen and James Cook. And if we're thinking this is going to be a matchup that Josh Allen's going to have to put on the old Superman cape and try and make something happen for the Bills, it's going to have to be with one of these wide receivers. And I'll at least try and advocate for Keon Coleman. And I know that it hasn't really happened as much as we would like for Coleman in his second year now with Allen as we want it to be, but still, I mean, he has had a 21% target share throughout the season, 3 games with over 20% of the team's targets, but where he plays on the field doesn't always lend itself to fantasy points, with consistent fantasy points. I mean, right now, out of the 19 wide receivers that are between 20 and 25% of their team's targets, he has the 8th worst catchable target rate. And because he hasn't had as many reps within the slot, it does lead to more of that volatile play that we really do see out of those types of perimeter wide receivers. And I know I've seen on social media, folks have been advocating for some sort of role change, trying to move him into some sort of power slot role. That's really not going to happen, at least not in this version of the Bills offense. But with Josh Palmer supposed to miss this game, it could lend itself to Allen trying to take more of those shots downfield, which they have connected, which some teams have connected deep down the field against the Chiefs secondary. Terry McLaurin just got by them for 50 yards and touchdown before he re-aggravated his quad injury. We also saw Brian Thomas Jr. get over them a couple of times for 80 yards, and Jameson Williams got them for 60 yards in a score when the Lions played against the Chiefs. So that archetype of receiver that plays on the perimeter, can work the intermediate and deep parts of the field, has worked in the past. And if there's going to be any game that Coleman tries to show up and actually make something happen for that Bills passing game, it should be in this one against the Chiefs.
All right, you guys are speaking some truth. Numbers don't always speak the truth, though. Let's take a look at some numbers that lie. These are stats or trends that are out there that are deceiving and will not matter in Week 9 that you don't like at all. Matt Harmon, always the skeptic on these things. Give me numbers that are lying.
I think right now the Bears' offensive volatility and the stats kind of showing that it's been, either a great offense or a bottom offense. I think those numbers are lying and they really won't matter this week. But just to lay out the case here, the Bears rank 26 in offensive success rate, but they're third in explosive play rate, which I think perfectly kind of describes this unit. It's been there have been good moments. There's no question there's been good moments, even though everybody wants to over-focus on Caleb Williams and constantly pile on the criticism. There's no question that there's been explosive, good plays from this offense. That said, the success rate shows the down-to-down consistency has also not been there, which I think is totally fair to point out, that it hasn't been just smooth progress throughout the course of the season for Williams in this unit. But this week in particular, and close your ears here, Chris Allen, I mean, Chicago just draws a great matchup with an utterly beatable Bengals defense. They're going to allow you to do anything, any which way you want. There's no question about that. But we saw last week as a Ben Johnson, disciple in Tanner Engstrand, the Jets offensive coordinator, laid out the blueprint for this style of offense being able to beat this defense in particular over the middle of the field, targeting those linebackers. Justin Fields, who's not usually this great play-action passer, completed at 7 of his 10 play-action pass attempts for the 5th most yards off play-action in Week 8. Again, that's not usually Justin Fields' game, but it just shows you those over-the-middle throws will be available. Now it's just up for Caleb Williams to actually take those throws and follow the offensive design. I think he can do it in this matchup, but I do think the numbers overall throughout the course of the season, that's going to be the more interesting trend to follow.
Yeah, well, I love that you threw a little bit of shade there, Chris, too. Like, Chris, I don't know how I feel about this. Like, look, I'm standing up for you. You don't have to take this. It's
just the facts.
Real, though.
I had to watch it live, recap it with Harmon last Sunday, and now it's all coming screaming back to me today. I have to relive it every time. It's terrible. It's tough.
That's what this show does. Look, the segment's numbers don't lie. You couldn't lie about it. Chris, give us a number that is lying to you.
All right, so for running backs, I think one of the adages that we always try and spout as fantasy analysts is volume is king. And for a running back that's going to get the primary majority of the touches in their backfield, those are the guys that we want to target. But for Kyren Williams, if you were to look at his week-to-week trend over these past 3 games, you would have some concerns over Kyren Williams and if he still has the hold over the Rams backfield. From week 5 to week 7, before they head into their week 8 bye, his snaps were on a downward trajectory from 91% down to 60%. And of course, his rushing attempts went down as well, 88% in week 5, all the way down to a straight 50-50 split between Williams and Blake Corum in week 8. But now I'll give you something else that fantasy managers and analysts also like to say. Context matters as well. In week 7, when they were playing and we saw that 50-50 split between him and Corum, it was an absolute blowout win for the Rams when they were playing against the Jaguars, like out overseas. I mean, that was where we saw Corum really take over as the goal line back. He had 3 carries from inside the 10, but 2 of them came in the 4th quarter when the game was already in hand. So if we were actually to look at when the teams were actually in neutral positions over the past 3 games, it still has been Kyren Williams that's had the majority of those carries. 100% of the team's carries, like when they were in neutral situations over the past 2 games, that didn't shift until we got into that week 7 matchup. Same thing for the goal line. 100% of the team's carries at the goal line didn't shift until we got into that week 7 matchup. You're not changing anything about how you're going to approach Kyren Williams in this game. They are double-digit favorites against the Saints. You're having them locked into your lineup. So until we actually see more of that, when the teams are within about a score or more for Kyren Williams and Blake Corum, and that shift starts to happen more, that's when I'll get concerned. But for right now, Kyren Williams, RB1, lock it up.
All right, gentlemen, you guys get to take a little breather, get to the bench, get a little water, get ready for what's continuing to happen because it is time to get to some breaking ranks. We bring Justin Boone back, and we figure out who's moving on the rankings based on the latest, greatest news and information we have. Boone, what do you got for us?
All right, first guy here, I want to talk about some of the running backs that I mentioned off the top. Kyle Monangai up to RB12 for me this week. It's not just that DeAndre Swift's out. Roschon Johnson also out, so they have to lean on the rookie here. And it doesn't get much easier than this. The Bengals are the best matchup for fantasy backs. Fitz, they've allowed at least 100 scrimmage yards and or a touchdown to 12 different running backs this year. Like, there's almost no way, and I should probably knock on wood as I say this, but there is no way that Monangai is not going to have at least a decent game. So he could potentially put up absurd production in this one. I would start him as an RB1 this week. Travion Henderson, I have him up to RB20. And I know I heard Harmon earlier say, like, we're not 100% sure that he is going to get all of the volume in this backfield. Terrell Jennings is there. We know the coaching staff loves him. But I think Henderson is by far the most talented back. And I think he's going to get this opportunity. And he can do something with it. I mean, Atlanta giving up the 11th most fantasy points to running backs this year, and they've been hit particularly hard lately. 91 and a touchdown to Devon Achane, 66 and a TD to Ollie Gordon, 201 and 2 touchdowns to CMC, and that's just the last couple of weeks here. So as long as Henderson gets a decent amount of touches and we don't have something shocking happen where Jennings ends up being the lead back and Henderson remains in like a change of pace role, which, hey, I'm not throwing out any possibility with the Patriots coaching staff here, but I think they drafted this guy for a reason, and now he's finally going to get his shot. So you could play him this week as a pretty strong RB2. And then we're going to stay positive with all these guys. Normally we do a couple positives and somebody going out. No, let's do just all positives this week. Jacoby Myers up to wide receiver 37. Finally back in the lineup here coming off the bye. And let's not forget, like early in the season, he was doing all right. He wasn't finding the end zone, and sometimes that's a knock on him, but over 60 yards in the first 3 games before he got banged up. I just think he's always been like a pretty underrated fantasy option. Now he's back, and I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, Fitz, but he's got something to prove here because he's been on the trade block here, right? Like there's been tons of rumors. He said he wants to get traded. Is he not going out there this week and auditioning for other teams? Is he not going out there? We always talk about guys in contract years. I think we're going to see Myers go out and put up a huge game to tell everyone else out there, come get me. I can be an asset to your team. So I think fantasy managers can take advantage of that. Put him in your lineup, a wide receiver 3 flex option. I think he's going to have a pretty good week now that he's back in the lineup.
I mean, Jacoby's back, Brock's back. I don't know. I'm starting to get a little excited. More excited I hear. I have heard that Chris Allen did not appreciate your slight at the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm just letting you know that more show beef is being started as we can. We'll bring everybody together now for hurry up offense, but I'm not sure when we get into the huddle that there aren't going to be words between my wide receivers that all think that they're open and need the ball. We'll go first. Which one we do? We put 25 seconds up on the clock and figure it out. So there we go. 25 seconds up on the clock. And here we go. Standard league, need one. Usually wouldn't ask this, but with Hunter being out, BTJ versus Vegas, Pickens versus Arizona, or Ted McMillan versus Green Bay. Make your pick. We'll throw to Chris Allen here. Chris, you want to make a breakdown here?
No, I don't want to. I'm still hurt from everybody else just picking on my Bengals, man. It's just terrible. It's so tough for me. I don't know how I can continue to perform at this. But no, I'll go BTJ versus Vegas with the Hunter injury.
You know what? We'll give Boone the fault on the delay of game day. That doesn't go on Chris. I needed to give Chris the opportunity to speak his piece. Quentin Johnson or Jerry Jeudy, which is less likely?
Great question.
Who is less likely to score 0 points this week? Harmon, what do you got?
I mean, it's definitely the guy that plays in the significantly better offense with the significantly better quarterback, and it is Quentin Johnson. Definitely is more likely to score 0. Is less likely to score 0 points this week.
That is, I feel you, Jared, all the way to the core. I feel that.
Also, the Browns are on
Will
a bye,
Stafford
right?
next up.
That makes them a question.
Hey, you know what? I'm anchor, man. I'm just reading him at this point. He asked a question, I read him. All right. You know what, San Diego? All right, Henderson, Monangai, or Dobbins? We'll throw this to Boone. What do you got?
Oh, you just want me to pile on Chris's Bengals even more here? You got to go with Kyle Monangai. The matchup's so good. The volume is going to be there. They really don't have anyone else to give the ball to. I think we'll see DJ Moore get some touches out of the backfield potentially this week. It's like Travis Homer, Britton Brown. No, they're going to give Monangai a ton of work. That's the guy you want in your lineup.
Manung, why are we doing this to Chris? Am I right? Am I right? All right. Let's go next to Manny.
Just pain. Just pain.
Manny with the question. PPR, Rico Dowdle, Bam Knight, or Kareem Hunt. What do you think, Harmon?
Man, it's close between Kareem Hunt and Rico Dowdle. I really want to say Rico Dowdle, but it is a significantly tougher matchup. And yeah, he might start, he might get more carries, but Chuba Hubbard's still going to be involved. I think Kareem Hunt's got a better path to a touchdown this week.
The next question coming in comes from Mason Gale. Mason, I don't know what you do for a living, but you should be a country music singer because Mason Gale is the best country music singer voice of all time. Gadsden, Henderson, or Johnston? What do you think, Chris Allen?
I think in this matchup, I will go Gadsden over that group. We made the points earlier about the potential for a backfield split with Henderson and the guys they brought up from the practice squad. Johnston, can't trust him right now in that passing game. So out of that group, I would say Gadsden probably has the best path to touches and also touchdowns.
And let's get the next one in from Japong. Great name. Says Devontae Adams, Tyrone Tracy, or Brian Thomas Jr. in full PPR. Make your pick, Boom. What say you?
Man, I think they're all going to have pretty good games. I think they all got a pretty good shot to find the end zone. I would go with Tyrone Tracy Jr. We've seen him be productive in that backfield in a starting role before. Jackson Dart just lifting all boats in that offense as well. And he's going to get used in the passing game, so he's going to get some catches in PPR.
We're getting one other here in from the chat real quick on this. Williams or Dart is the question. Williams or Dart? What do you think, Harmon? Williams or Dart?
God, tough one.
That face says it all. It's basically a coin flip. Come on.
Yeah, it's a total coin flip for me. But I'll try to chase the Caleb Williams big game against those terrible Bengals. I'll go with Caleb Williams, if only just to make Chris make that face.
You know what? Here's the thing. We got to take a break, and I think it's 50-50. It's a coin flip on whether Chris actually comes back after the break. During the break, Chris is going to walk off. We'll see him next week. And we did this. He deserves it. We did this to ourselves in our show. All right, coming up, we'll keep your questions coming in the chat. We'll get more of them answered throughout the course of the show. But Tyrone Tracy is about to take over the Big Apple. The question is, which other running backs might be a better start in Week 9? We'll tackle that in Fantasy Face-Off coming up next. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live in Yahoo Sports. I'm your host, Jason Fitz, hanging out with Matt Harmon, Chris Allen, Justin Boone. We're going to be here all the way up to kickoff, getting you caught up and ready on everything you need to know for today, from actives to inactives. We are not the only teammates out here doing the damn thing today, though. Scott Pianowski out there on Twitter X, as he is every Sunday. In my mind, he's now about 5 songs into the Mariah Carey Christmas record. He's turned the music down just a little bit. It's the perfect ambiance, and he is ready for look, let me dream, all right? I'm just saying, what do we do on Thanksgiving? On Thanksgiving, we eat, we drink, we catch up with our friends, right? That's what we do during halftime of games. The same thing. Thanksgiving is halftime of the Christmas music season. It starts today. It goes all the way up until Thanksgiving. take a couple days off, then he'd come back to it. That's the way it works. Harmon doesn't agree with that. There's much that he doesn't agree with. He may also not agree with the fantasy chatter. Let's take a look at some of the most talked about players in the Yahoo Fantasy app. Drake London, easy bench this week. Penix outdoors on the road against a good defense. No thanks. Have fun sweating out 50 yards. Ty, beacon of optimism. Joe Flacco. I'd start Flacco this game, but with it literally being his throwing arm, that's bothering him. I think it's a little risky to throw him out there, so I'm just going to stick to May and Rodgers super flex. Sad that we're at that spot with Joe Flacco where you need him to try and get your wins. And then Jacoby Myers, been riding my bench too long. If this dude not traded, then dropping him like an unfaithful girlfriend, Robert. I mean, we heard Boone talk about it earlier. Are we buying this Chris Allen? You buying a little bit of Jacoby Myers having that trade juice in his loins that helps him get to a big game?
I can see that. And then also, Harmon brought up the point, I believe, a few weeks ago about the Chiefs receivers and how when you have your healthy guys brought back, the primary options, it allows the rest of the players to get slotted back into their roles. And over the past few weeks, as we've seen Jacoby Myers, while the volume has been there, having him being the focal point of your offense, probably not the best way to go about it. So if you have Bowers sitting there working the short to intermediate parts of the field, and now you get Jacoby Myers in that pass catcher 2 role, you get Trey Tucker now as your downfield threat, it allows the rest of the offense to really work as intended. So I understand that where the volume should be there, but now with you having some other person on the team that can actually take away some of the primary defensive coverage, I can see how Jacoby Myers could get back into not just the volume, but the fantasy production that you would want out of the Raiders passing game.
Yeah, I don't know what'll be more interesting, how he looks today or whether or not he's still on the roster for their Thursday night matchup coming up this week. We'll see. We'll see where that goes. All right, gentlemen, let's take a look at some locked-in matchups. It's time to lock it in. These are matchup-proof players. You do not give a damn who they're playing up against. You just know that they're going to do the dang thing. Matt Harmon, who's lock-in matchup-proof for you?
Yeah, I still consider Nico Collins to be one of those players. I'm really interested to see what he looks like in his game back off a concussion last week, where the Texans offense kind of found a little bit of something last week with him not being there. I don't think that was like a Ewing theory or anything like that. It also might have just been that 49ers defense is extremely vulnerable right now. But this week, Collins gets a matchup with the Broncos, who are one of the most man coverage heavy defenses in the NFL. 43% of their plays, according to Fantasy Points data, they use man coverage, one of the highest rates in the league. That usually locks down the top receiver, but Patrick Surtain is going to miss this game. He's on a multi-week absence right now. And let's not forget that Nico Collins from 2023 to 2024 was the best wide receiver in the NFL against man coverage from a yards per route run standpoint. He led the NFL in those 2 years with 4.06 yards per route run. These are the other receivers that were in that cohort. CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, George Pickens, Puka Nacua, Justin Jefferson. So that is the group of players, the best receivers in the league, some of those guys that Nico Collins was performing and operating as the last 2 seasons. I think he can get on track here against the man coverage heavy Broncos, missing their top corner, especially if the Texans are able to roll over any of those like wrinkles they used last week that made the offense feel a little bit more cohesive in the middle of Nick Caley's first season on the job.
All right, Boone, give me somebody that you are locking in.
I'm locking in George Pickens against the Cardinals, and the matchup surprisingly is not the easiest. The Cardinals are giving up the 9th fewest fantasy points to receivers, but last week we saw this Dallas offense have a very tough matchup against the Broncos, and we saw CeeDee Lamb come back, which those two things put together might make you think that George Pickens would have a down game, and yet no. He had 9 targets. He caught 7 of them for 78 yards. He is still going to get volume. This team is currently 3rd in pass attempts, and that's really because their defense is so bad. They have no other choice. They got to chuck the ball around the yard. So Pickens, to me, has proven himself as a guy who's matchup proof, and you are not going to hesitate to start him in a game that has the highest projected point total of the week at 53.5. So volume is never going to be an issue in Dallas. We know talent's not an issue for Pickens, so you're going to make sure he is in your lineup, even when you see that red bad matchup next to his name.
All right, Chris, what about you? What do you got that you're locking in?
So I'll go another wide receiver here, Jackson Smith-Njigba for Seattle. I mean, he has to be a guy that is completely matchup proof at this point. We'll talk about him a bit more once we get to the Seahawks and Commanders matchup here in a little while. But for Smith-Njigba right now, I mean, through 8 weeks, 9.6 targets per game. That's up towards the top end of the league. I mean, he's no Jamar Chase in terms of how often he can get a ball thrown his way, but what he's doing with it is something also that fantasy managers have to be loving as of right now. I mean, 3 straight games with 100+ yards and a touchdown. 5 of those games right now, it's also getting over 100 yards. I mean, he's really just in rarefied air in terms of how well he's been producing on the field. So if you got Jackson Smith-Njigba, you happen to have him locked into your wide receiver 1 spot, especially here in week 9.
All right, now Chris and I get to take a little break. Boone, Matt, you guys got to figure out some fantasy face-off. Boone, what you got for us?
All right, Harmon, let's face off a little bit here. I'm curious to see where you have some of these guys. Let's talk about Tyron Tracy up against some of the backs that are in the same range of the rankings as him. And I mean, Tyron Tracy, I mentioned it off the top, but RB21 in fantasy points per game last year when he got that starting role from week 5 on. So he's a pretty good start this week. What about up against a guy like Ashton Genty, who for the most part has been a bit of a disappointment, and yet this week has a decent matchup? I have these guys very close. How about you?
Yeah, decent matchup. The Jacksonville Jaguars are also going to be missing Devin Lloyd in this game, who's one of their best defensive players, was on a torrid pace prior to getting hurt a few weeks back. I think I will go with Ashton Genty in this one. A little bit of a lean to him over Tyron Tracy. It's kind of maybe a wash, if not even a favor in Tyron Tracy in terms of we're looking at the quality of offense here. But I think I'll still go Genty, and hopefully the Raiders have figured a few things out over their bye week.
Well, I think just coming back at something close to full strength, right? Getting some of these injured guys back in Bowers and Myers, it's just going to give that offense a little bit of pop, where I think Genty didn't have a chance behind that offensive line without those skill position players for a few weeks here. Now he's at least going to get a shot to hopefully be in scoring opportunity. I'm going with you there. I think Genty gets the slight nod, though. Like I said, I have them very close in my RB2 ranks. What about Tracy versus Travis Etienne? You know, Travis Etienne is a guy that this year was having a fantastic season in the first month and then kind of quieted off a bit. He's coming off the bye. Is he a guy that you would play over Tracy or not?
I think this was the hardest one for me, so I'm really curious to hear what your answer is. I think I'm going to lean slightly towards the Jaguars running back in this one. I think this ground game can get back on track here. I didn't see anything in terms of structurally something changed. I didn't think like ETN played any worse than he did to start the year. So to me, I feel like it's probably a better offensive environment, although not having Travis Hunter, which, by the way, we haven't said it yet. What a heartbreak that was to get that notification on Friday morning that he's going on IR. That obviously brings a little bit of juice out of this offense coming out of the bye, but it's a really good matchup for him this week. So I think I'm going to lean slightly towards the Jaguars running back here, but I'm curious if you disagree.
Well, before I give my answer, I will just say on the Travis Hunter note, when the notification came through, I was in a meeting at the time and I glanced down at my phone and I saw non-contact and I was like, non-contact jersey on Friday. Well, at least he's out there practicing. And then I looked closer and realized non-contact injury. He is going to be out for a while. So that was an extra gut punch there.
We got to do something about you being in a meeting on Friday. Well, who do we got to talk to get you out of meetings on Friday, bro? That's the biggest.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. Here between Etienne and Tracy, I'm actually going to go with Tracy. We're going to disagree on this one. And part of the reason is because I think coming out of the bye, there's a chance that Bashal Tutin gets a little more work. We saw him get a little more opportunity before the bye. We've had all these quotes from Liam Cohen about we're going to play our best 11. We're going to get guys involved. And I think they kind of need to get someone else going there because Etienne just hasn't been the same back that he was early in the season. So why not? Let's see what Tutin can do out there. A guy that we know can be explosive, a guy that we know can find the end zone. And I think that just bumps down the projection for Travis Etienne just enough that I'm going to start Tracy over him. But still, we're talking about the same range here as these like mid-range RB2s. Still a decent play, but I like Tracy better. What about this last one? Tracy versus Rico Dowdle. And as I mentioned earlier, we got word that this is going to be Rico Dowdle's backfield. We're not exactly sure how the touches are going to go between him and Chuba Hubbard, but they have made it very clear that it is going to be Dowdle getting more work than Hubbard, that he is going to get the start. So is that enough to bump him over Tracy for you?
I think I'm going to lean to Tyron Tracy on this one because I'm very confident that it is Tyron Tracy's backfield over, Devin Singletary or any of the other names there. Like you mentioned, last year Tracy was a solid starting back. I think Cam Scatterbo just proved to be something a little bit more than him this year. That being said, on the Carolina side, I would love for, my heart is saying Rico Dowdle. I want Rico Dowdle to get that start, like you said, and get the first few touches, get the first couple series all to himself to sort of build that momentum up. But Hubbard is still a very popular player, and I think still a good back. He's better than what he's shown the last couple weeks. He's been coming off that calf injury. You made this point about him, I believe, on the podcast, where did he rush back because, Rico Dowdle's balling out. I got to get back out there and push through this, and it's maybe limited his effectiveness. We see that with players all the time. So I think this week, I think that it's Tyron Tracy over Rico Dowdle, but hopefully he can build that momentum over the course of the day and into hopefully future weeks be like a clear must start.
Yeah, I agree. The uncertainty with the Hubbard split, and could Hubbard, get a touchdown, take that away? He's still going to be involved to some degree. But for me, I'm giving it to Tracy because the matchup is just very difficult for Dowdle, right? Yes, he's getting the start, but in those games that he blew up, the matchups were so easy. This one against the Packers, they're giving up the third fewest fantasy points to running backs this year. So this is not the same kind of spot for that offense. So I'm going to go with Tracy on that one. Let's get the boys back in here, though. We got plenty more to go over, Fitz. Let's get to it.
All right, let's get to make your pick. Chris, this is where we help some people with some of their tougher decisions that they have to make here. They leave it to you and I, the adults in the room, get to take this over. So let's start with B. B says, hashtag make your pick. I've never been called the adult in the room. I need 2 flexes out of these 4 players. Moore, Booty, Pierce, DK, thank you. What do you think?
So if I'm picking 2 out of those, I definitely want a piece of this Pittsburgh and Colts game. So let me get Alec Pierce as one of the guys that I want to go right off of the rip. I'd say he'd be the one that I'd want to target. Now, out of the remaining 3, DK has shown up as a nice speed slot option. Kayshon Boutte, of course, the deep option for Drake May. DJ Moore now getting, I'll say a decent matchup against the Bengals. All right, I'm going to go the flip side of that from what everybody's talked about, my Cincinnati guys. But out of that group, with some of the other injuries going around for Chicago's passing game, I'll say DJ Moore is the guy that I would want just from an opportunity and also touchdown equity standpoint.
All right, let's get the next question in. And this one, they give you 4 players there. I think the name on it, Rebellion. Oh, there we go. I'm the worst. Rebel Lion. I like mine better. I'm going Rebel Lion. It's a lion with an attitude. Trey Tucker, Calvin Austin, DK, or Kyle Pitts. What do you think?
So out of those 4, we were talking earlier about how with Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers being back, how that slots everybody else down. Trey Tucker, the 3rd pass catching option for Geno Smith, not that interested in. Calvin Austin, while he has been played more of the slot role, haven't really seen him step up in terms of how often he's earning targets. Even in a good matchup against the Colts, I'd say not as much for him either. I'd say DK is probably the one that I would want to look at. So it's between him and Austin. Kyle Pitts also dealing with an injury, not looking forward to his matchup for the Patriots. So one of Austin and DK. I'll go Austin in this one, though, just because of that matchup. The game score environment should be one that should be better for the Steelers. Go up against the Colts secondary, who have been pretty lenient towards opposing wide receivers, just because a lot of those guys, they wind up playing in prevent type schemes once they get into the back end of those games anyway. So I would rather go with Calvin Austin's matchup versus DK.
All right, let's get one more in. David with the hashtag make your pick. Need 2 flex, half PPR, Gadsden, Knight, Monangai. What do you think?
Monangai for...
Too, my bad.
Oh, Higgins is in there. Yes. Higgins, I'm going to have to downgrade because of the Joe Flacco injury. Monangai, I'll say he's one of the guys right off the rip is somebody that I would try and target. And then between Oronde Gadsden and Bam Knight, I'll go Bam Knight just for the matchup. The Cowboys, they have allowed the third most points, PPR points per game to opposing running backs. So while Gadsden has been operating really well and has been showing a lot of great rapport with Justin Herbert, the concern should be how often they're really going to be throwing once you get into the second half as they go up against the Titans. So Monangai and Bam Knight for me.
All right, that's we're going to keep it rolling for you. When we come back, Sunday Night Football heads to the nation's capital, but can the Commander-in-Chief get his squad back on the rails in return from injury? We'll preview Seattle, Washington coming up on the other side. Welcome back to Yahoo Sports Fantasy Football Live. I'm Jason Fitz, hanging out Matt Harmon, Chris Allen, Justin Boone. You guys are chiming in on YouTube. Love the energy as we got a comment about Rebel Lion earlier. Rebel Lion, the roar of freedom shall be heard by all. I'm talking about it. Like, I'm just imagining what it feels like to name your band Rebellion and have a radio guy be like, that was Rebel Lion's new hit. I'm the worst. Oh, God. I just, you know what? I can barely read. You know what's not the worst? The matchup we're getting between the Seahawks and the Commanders. Let's just get to that. Seahawks favored by 3, over and under on this one. 48.5. This game taking place in D.C., or Maryland. So a huge trip across country for Seattle. Let's take a look at one storyline that stands out to you, Matt Harmon, in this one.
Yeah, let's talk about a very difficult, very sensitive subject for many people. That is the Seahawks backfield. And let's try to make sense of the usage between these two players here. Look, I get it. People hate Zach Charbonnet because they drafted Kenneth Walker much higher this year. They find him to be this annoying pest. I'm telling you guys, there's a reason Zach Charbonnet is still involved. In addition to the fact that he is a guy that's good in pass protection, they trust him there, and he's kind of he's going to get what's blocked. He's not going to make a lot of mistakes out there. The other reason is I think Zach Charbonnet has been getting the usage that he's been getting to keep Kenneth Walker fresh. People forget about this because they want instant gratification, and I understand that. You need those fantasy points to start the year. Kenneth Walker's a guy who's been banged up every season so far. He's never played a full year. And Zach Charbonnet being that kind of second-hand hitter here, it's going to keep Kenneth Walker fresh for the games that really matter. It could be this week, right, where this Washington Commanders defense, the linebackers, Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu, they're really good at doing this. Coming forward, coming downhill. They're not really good going side to side. And Kenneth Walker is the perimeter run player. So I'm just telling you guys that the Kenneth Walker bag holders, if you can make it to the fantasy playoffs, maybe we see Kenneth Walker unleashed then. Like, we get a December to remember from this guy because he stayed healthy all year, and that's the time that, you want to win your fantasy matchups. The Seahawks want to win the division. They want to go to the playoffs, and maybe that's when they really unleash Kenneth Walker. So I like him tonight in this matchup enough, but I really think by the end of the year, we're going to see more and more of him when he has been able to stay healthy because Charbonnet has taken some of those grinder carries away.
Y'all would be much happier if you just accept that whichever side of this you choose, you're going to be wrong every week. It just makes it much easier. Chris, what do you got for us on this one?
So I talked earlier about JSN as the guy that you should have locked into your rosters. And really, when we talk about, I actually take that back. I don't think we've talked enough about how well he's really been performing outside of DK Metcalf's shadow here in 2025. JSN, like Jackson Smith and Jigba's 4.3 yards per route run. I know it's for some folks that you hear the stat and it's just, one of these metrics that the nerds toss out. It really is something that we should use as signal to say this is going to be one of the better years for JSN, because Tyreek Hill, when he had his back-to-back 17 plus 100 yard campaigns, he was at 4.26, 3.7 yards per route run. I mean, so this is the type of efficiency you would see out of one of those all-time type receiving productions. And actually, according to True Media's database, his 4.3 yards per route run through the 8 weeks, it's the highest of any wide receiver through 8 games since 2010. And actually, if you go all the way back to 2000, he's right behind Reggie Wayne and Chad Ochocinco for the top spot for any wide receiver through 2 months of the season. I mean, where he's being used out on the field, the play action concepts that him and Sam Darnold have really have down. I mean, 18.3 air yards per target on play action concepts, which is just absurd. He has really performed well as that wide receiver one, and it really exceeded expectations for a lot of folks thinking that he was just going to get the volume with DK Metcalf out of the picture. So I'm looking at this as another game that he'll be able to get over on the Commanders secondary, who have been allowing 12th most explosive pass yards per game for perimeter wide receivers, and also the most to slot receiver, the most receptions to slot receivers as well through 8 games. So this is going to be another matchup where 100 yards and a touchdown for JSN, it really should be there for him here in week 9. So JSN wheels up again in week 9.
A sneaky reminder that the offseason was great for Seattle this year. They saw it with JSN. They understood what Darnold could do with that offense. They did things really well this year. Look, I'll just keep it short and sweet. Jump off the bandwagon. Jump as far away from the Commanders right now as you possibly can. Even the greatness of Jaden Daniels can't fix the you-know-what that's around him. And it's injuries in part. Look, if you looked at last year, they were so far ahead of their skis in so many ways. Washington wasn't as good as their record, but the expectation was this year maybe they would take a small step back. That was before we factor in the amount of injuries here. No, Terry McLaurin is obviously huge, but also they've been banged up on the offensive line so much this year. I just don't think you can trust any consistent offensive performance coming out of Washington. Not because Jaden Daniels isn't great, but because you can only ask the quarterback to rise so much that's around him. I think what you're seeing is the ancillary effect of a team that in part was going to take a step back, but then even bigger is also banged up everywhere that it just couldn't afford to be banged up to be as competitive as they need to be. The wheels have fallen off. I'm out on the Washington offense. What do you got for me, Boone?
I mean, I think we got to talk about the struggles of Bill Krosky-Merritt, right? Like, he's gotten the opportunity to be the lead back, to potentially be a fantasy star, and it hasn't happened. And some of it is because of all the injuries that they've dealt with over the last month or so. Some of it is because he's not really involved in the receiving game. So when they fall behind in these contests, he's not getting a chance to put up many fantasy points. And now you look at the matchup this week. I mean, the Seahawks aren't just favored in this one. They've also held opposing ball carriers under 50 rushing yards in every single game going all the way back to week 1. That was the only time that a guy topped 50 yards against them was in the opener. So I think Krosky-Merritt is a guy who's going to have opportunity the rest of the way, who's going to have some good games when he gets better matchups. And don't worry, there are better matchups coming eventually, but this is not one of them. So I would not have him in your lineup this week if you can avoid it.
All right, gentlemen, let's get to prime time picks. You know what we do. It's our snake draft. We go through 3 different games. The standings have changed. The standings have changed. What is that right there? 70-point. Woo, that's a big. I just want to remind y'all got beat by a man in an inflatable zebra costume. And not only did you get beat, look at those scores. Y'all got your butts whooped by a man in an inflatable zebra costume, taking second place. And now, by the way, second place in total points. Boone thought he was running away with this thing. Hasn't happened yet. So here's what we got. We got 3 games. KC, Buffalo, of course, because it's huge. Seattle, Washington, and Arizona, Dallas, because we had to. And now we're going to snake through those games, and we will do this thing. The order has not changed. The order, yet again, is going to be the same. So, Matt Harmon, is this the week we get off the schneid, good sir?
I mean, probably not. I can't even get a damn win when JT has 3 touchdowns because I'm a moron and I didn't take Tucker Kraft. So probably not, but we'll give it a shot. I'll take JSN first pick, whatever.
That's the level of passion we expect. I really am still stunned that JT didn't get you the win. It was a good day by me. Chris, what do you got?
I suck.
So I'll try and at least pick up some points here with Javonte Williams. I mean, running back for the Cowboys in this matchup going against the Cardinals. 12th most points allowed to the position. Give me Javonte.
All right, so I'm up first here, and I know Boone's got 2 around me, and I know because you took Javonte that I'm going to eventually take whichever of the wide receivers Boone doesn't take. So I will instead go to the Kansas City game, and I think I'm just going to keep banking on Rashee Rice being some sort of a big play element against the Bills. This is really between Rashee and, I don't know, maybe Kelsey. I'm going to take Rashee. I feel good about Rashee. I like the offense here. Boone, that means you're up.
That was a smart pick. I would have taken him. I would have run that pick up to the board if I could have. I will take CeeDee Lamb, another very strong receiver. And then coming back around, it's a bit of a coin flip, but I'll go with James Cook coming off the huge game. I don't really love the way he's set up in this Chiefs one, but scores a lot of touchdowns. The Bills are leaning on him. Let's go with James Cook.
Yeah, and I figured you would take CD, which would leave me Pickens. You talked about Pickens earlier. I'm not worried about Pickens being number 2 in this. His target share is really a 1A, and he's going to have some opportunities. So I'm happy to take George Pickens as my next pick, which puts Chris back on the board.
So I'll take another wide receiver for Patrick Mahomes, and I'll go Xavier Worthy here. Target share has been at least steady enough that he's been producing, and if there's a chance that Rice and Kelsey stretch the Bills horizontally, Worthy can stretch them deep. So I'll go Worthy here.
And now Matt gets the biggest advantage in all of sports that he's never been able to take advantage of every single week. 2 straight picks.
Shut up. Shut up. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, even though apparently per this contest, my mouth doesn't know what the hell it's talking about. I'll take Kareem Hunt on this one. Hopefully good against that Bills run defense. And listen, if I was feeling a little more confident, I would mention that I think it's crazy that Trey McBride has fallen this far in this contest against that Cowboys defense. But I'm not going to mention that. I'm just going to politely take him here for my 3rd selection.
Okay, he's talking about he's got a little swagger. He's still got the
No,
swagger.
I have no
Chris.
swagger. No swagger. No swagger.
All right, Chris, that puts you back on the clock.
So we were talking, or Harmon was talking earlier about the split between Walker and Charbonnet. So I'll take the guy that's going to get those money touches in Zach Charbonnet, even though there is definitely a chance for Walker to get some explosive runs. But Charbonnet here.
Well, it's a tradition like no other where I feel like I'm stuck here with I don't really know, and I just take who I think the best tight end is that's left available to me. So I take Ertz sitting here available to me, and I just hope for some time. Last week it was Kraft mac and cheese at the very end that willed me to the victory. I'm hoping that Ertz can be my ramen. He can be my savior that gets me over the line at the end. Boom, what do you got?
I don't know, Fitz. I feel like taking a tight end has not been profitable in this contest, but we'll see. I got to go from that game as well, and it's kind of a toss-up here between Kenneth Walker and Deebo Samuel, but I'm going to go with Deebo. I think they're going to be trailing. I think they're going to have to throw no Terry McLaurin out there, so I hate these last picks, but we'll go with Deebo on this one.
You hate the last picks every time, yet all you do is win, no matter what. So there we go. That's well, actually, you and I at this point, as 7 of the wins so far have come from the last 2 people picking. I'm just going to start lumping myself in with Boone. We'll keep you updated on how it worked. If I don't do well this week, then I'm bringing the zebra back next week because that was obviously the lucky chef's kiss we need. Let's get to the hurry-up offense. That got just a general thud from the whole room. 25 seconds on the clock. And we've got a bunch of YouTube questions. The first coming in from Coastal Elite. I learned how to read that one. Jalen Warren at Indy, DJ Moore at Cincy, or Jacoby Myers versus Jags in half PPR. Harmon, what say you?
I think I'm going to go Jalen Warren on this one. I feel pretty good about him just kind of owning that backfield right now. The other guys are involved a little bit, but especially Kenneth Gainwell. But Jalen Warren looks like the lead dog there. I just don't really trust DJ Moore. He's not involved in this offense, even if it's a good matchup. And Jacoby Myers coming off an injury.
All right, Razeal820 is the next one who says RJ Harvey or Brashard Smith. Yes, with injuries and buys, it has come to this.
Lord.
Chris Allen, what do you think?
I mean, out of either of those two, I mean, that's tough to trust. RJ Harvey just played on 28% of the snaps in week 8. So even if he had the touchdown upside, we can't expect him to do that again. I mean, Brashard Smith, I don't want either of those two guys. So if I had to pick one of them, I will go Brashard Smith just for the upside in that potential matchup. But he's tough to trust.
I love when I ask a question and you just see the analysts go, not me. Oh, Lord. All right, let's get the next one in. The next one comes from RYPYMES19. I don't know. Colston Loveland breakout today, boys, or pivot to AJ Barner? What do you think, Boone?
I actually think they're both decent streaming options. Of course, for Barner, it's Cooper Kupp being out, so they're going to probably rely on the tight ends a little more. But I do think this is the week. I think Colston Loveland in that matchup against the Bengals. Sorry, Chris.
Go ahead and say it.
It's also a good matchup for tight ends. And yeah, I think they have a lot of reason to get him more involved along the way here. So I think he's the pick.
You know what? At this point, I am desperately rooting for the Bengals to just crush so that the group chat gets fiery this afternoon.
What could go wrong?
I mean, Chris has got just ammunition galore to throw out at all of us this afternoon if this thing goes. I'm empowering you, Chris. Like today's the day to just come in guns blazing on the group chat.
I'll remember all of this.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. All right, coming up next, it should be a fantasy feast at Jerry's World on Monday night. Cardinals come to town, but will Marvin Harrison Jr. finally grab a fork, or will fantasy managers go hungry? We'll tell you about it next. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. Jason Fitz, Matt Harmon, Chris Allen, Justin Boone with you here on Yahoo Sports. Taking you all the way up to kickoff today. One of the big games we have, a fantasy feast. Cardinals at Cowboys. That's our Monday night matchup. As you know, the Cowboys favored in this one. Favored by 3, over under on it 54. That game at Jerry's house. So let's take a look at here. Boone, what's the storyline you have your eyes on in this matchup?
I mean, we got to talk about the Cardinals quarterback situation, right? That Kyler Murray not able to go in this one. And I've said before in the show, like, I'm just so sick of hearing about Kyler Murray, in part because the guy hasn't been a good fantasy quarterback this season. He hasn't finished inside the top 15 fantasy quarterbacks any week. You know who's finished as a QB1, a top 12 fantasy quarterback in both his starts? Jacoby Brissett, and he is going to get to go here. It's good news for Trey McBride, who is catching touchdowns from him at a much higher rate than he's done from Kyler Murray. It's good news for Marvin Harrison Jr., who is going to get a shot to, I think, be a pretty good wide receiver too, and a top 20 option for fantasy this week. So it's a great matchup against the Cowboys defense. They're giving up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks. It's a great spot for Brissett. It's a good spot for this passing game. I've already mentioned multiple times on the show, huge projected point total in this game. There's going to be fireworks. And Jacoby Brissett, just doesn't he give us more faith that this offense is going to be able to produce in this situation? I know he does for me. I think he is going to be basically like a borderline low-end QB1 in this game. Wouldn't surprise me at all if he puts up another top 12 performance given the matchup. So I'm very excited. It's unfortunate that Kyler can't go for whatever reason, the injury, soft benching. I know Harmon loves that term. Whatever this is, it's kind of good for fantasy that Brissett is getting the start again here, and I'm happy about it for all the spots where I have Cardinals players this week.
Okay, Boone, I'm going to keep the pressure on you because we have a question coming from social media on this. We'll pull it up as we go here. And Snake says, not a flex, but desperate. Murray not starting and Baker on bye. My waiver options are basically Jacoby, Geno, and Trevor. Arizona scares me because Murray may have a role. Who has a chance for an average to good week? What do you think, Boone?
No, it's Jacoby Brissett all the way. I mean, Geno Smith has not been great this season, even though he's getting some weapons back, so I wouldn't trust him. We also got a report this morning that Trevor Lawrence is dealing with an illness, that he's going to play. It's not going to affect his game status, but that on top of just the way Trevor Lawrence has played most weeks, I'm definitely going with Jacoby Brissett there.
All right, let's keep this matchup going. We'll go to Harmon next. Harmon, who do you have your eye on in this one?
Yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr., man, now or maybe never in this game. To piggyback off Boone's point, the 2 games with Jacoby Brissett that he has started, the Cardinals have averaged 274 passing yards per game and converted 57% of their third down plays. That ranks second and first in that 2-week span. They ranked 30th and 17th in the first 5 weeks with Kyler Murray under center. So I think there is no question that Jacoby Brissett just makes the offense a little bit more potent from a passing perspective. He's a little bit better fit with Drew Petzing, and we know they have history together dating back to Cleveland. So for Marvin Harrison Jr., now is the time to put in a big week. I talked about this with Ray Garvin earlier on the Fantasy Forecast this week. He's like, smash game coming up for Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm like, what is a smash game for Marvin Harrison at this point in this offense? Last time he had one of these really great matchups, he had 98 yards against the Tennessee Titans because they threw him a 40-yard bomb on the first drive of the game. They threw to him 4 more times throughout the rest of that game. 4 more. There's no other team that would have happened on except this Cardinals team. I share a lot of Boone's frustrations with this unit as well, but this is the week. This matchup, very zone-heavy defense. Marvin Harrison Jr. averaged over 2 yards per route run against zone coverage this year. This has got to be the week where he puts up a big spot, like now or never.
More questions than answers for the Cardinals most weeks as we go through this season. Chris, what you got your eyes on for?
So I'll flip it to the other side of that game and look at one of the Cowboys pass catchers, and that's Jake Ferguson, because he was the tight end 1 coming into this game, or at least up there in terms in the ranks. But he was probably the tight end 0 or nothing, because that's all we fantasy managers got from him in their game against the Broncos. So I'm not trying to take too much away from that wild game against Denver, which we thought was going to be more competitive from the Cowboys standpoint. Jake Ferguson still ran 30 routes on that in that game, and that's the 3rd most of any game this season. And flipping it forward to this game against the Cardinals, this is an Arizona defense that can be gotten by opposing tight ends. And Tucker Kraft got 58 in a score against them. Tyler Warren with 963-1 against them, and even AJ Barn that we were talking about earlier, 3 for 32-1. So the situation lends itself to this is going to be more of a pass-heavy type of matchup, with the Cardinals offense looking a bit more potent, as Harmon was laying out, with Jacoby Brissett under center, and also Boone as well outline the same points. So if this is going to be a back and forth type of matchup that Prescott is going to get pressed into throwing a bit more, Jake Ferguson should still be the beneficiary of that high tempo type of passing game.
Prescott, am I right? Haha, all right. I'll see myself out the door. Matt, Chris, you guys take over. Some fantasy bench warmers, some people you're stashing like me. I'll go warm the bench. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the time, Chris. This is when we got to start stashing those guys for the late season run, whether it's matchups. We expect them to rise over the course of the year. Let's go position by position here. You get us started with a quarterback to stash for the folks out there.
Well, if I'm going to keep caping up for Jackson Smith and Jigba, I have to also do the same for his quarterback. And Sam Darnold so far, like, he is kind of riding that razor's edge in terms of efficiency and pass volume, because right now he's 29th in dropbacks per game. But if you look at how well he's been able to connect with Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he's 9th in EPA per dropback. I mean, he is really chucking the ball downfield, because, 9.2 air yards per attempt. You're almost thinking at some point this is never going to continue to work. But with how well he's been able to work on play action passes, where sixth highest rate of play action concepts, it really, you should continue to ride this type of train. And the matchups also look fairly well for Seattle. We already talked about they get the Commanders. Afterwards, they get Arizona, and they do have something of a tougher out in the next few weeks facing the Rams. But if there is any quarterback that you can get off the waiver wire right now that has both the efficiency and the environment to really set up well for him, it's Sam Darnold.
Love that. I'll go with a wide receiver here. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, now is the time to start focusing in on maybe some of those under the radar rookie wide receivers who could potentially turn into fantasy starters down the stretch. I've talked about my guys like Jalen Knoll and obviously Torrey Horton on this show over the course of the season, but Jack Bech was another one of those prospects that I really liked in this year's draft class, and he has started to get some more opportunity for the Raiders. Was barely playing at all at the start of the year, which, as I've mentioned constantly, I thought that was a mistake. And he got involved in the 3 games prior to the bye. Actually saw his route participation tick up. He was playing as a full-time guy. Mixed results, I would say, on film. I thought the first 2 games were really strong for him. The Chiefs game was not so great, but it was pretty terrible for the entire offense. But coming out of the bye, I'm hoping he gets a little bit more ramped up as their big slot option. We know we've already talked about it. Jacoby Myers is a trade candidate, so Besh would be the guy to take his role as that starting slot receiver, but he's already been on the field as an outside receiver as well, so getting his feet wet there. Not saying he's going to be a second-half league winner or anything like that, but certainly somebody I would stash and just see what happens over the back half of the year. Look at me, inventing new and creative ways to get invested in the Geno Smith Raiders offense, Chris. Please bring some sanity back into the program and tell us some actual good running backs to stash.
So I'll give you 2 quick ones. Tank Bigsby is probably the obvious one coming from the Philadelphia Eagles after Saquon Barkley pulled himself out of their game before heading into their bye. But at least the reports indicated that Barkley should be good to go coming out of their bye, but still, if there's a chance for you to stash him and see how well he'll be able to run, and if Bigsby will get a little bit more run out of their bye, then it's something to at least target from a fantasy standpoint. His biggest issue, though, they do have 2 tough matchups post-bye, do face the Lions and the Packers in back-to-back weeks, so opportunity potentially, but the game environment won't set up all that well for him. Then I'll flip it over to Cleveland, also on their bye this week, but Quinshon Judkins with the shoulder injury, that brought Dylan Sampson back into our lives. And from a rushing standpoint, probably not as productive as you'd want him to be, but still, it's the target share. After Quinshon Judkins went down, Sampson earned over 40% of Dylan Gabriel's attempts. So if we're looking at what's the Browns offense going to look like, they do get the Jets, the Ravens, and the Raiders coming out of their bye. So if Judkins is at least limited or allows for more of a committee in that Browns backfield, Sampson should definitely benefit from that.
I like that call. I'll wrap it up here with a tight end. Theo Johnson of the New York Giants has been steadily involved over the course of the season. Each of the last 2 weeks, actually, he's run a route on 97% in back-to-back games in terms of routes per dropback these last 2 weeks. I think we've seen some flashes from him. He's obviously not been consistently hitting every single week, but that's the tight end position. Right now, he is probably the best young and ascending tight end that we can look for in terms of the athletic traits, the way he's played so far. In this Giants offense, there's no question about it. There's a lack of receiving talent, and I think Jackson Dart has played well enough for us to be interested in some of these lesser heralded players. So if you need tight end help, he's definitely the archetype of player I would like to bet on as a stash candidate. Not a clear starter right now, but somebody that maybe over the back half of the year gets it more involved on a week-to-week basis. All right, let's bring the whole crew back in here for some bold predictions heading into the week.
Ooh, I love that. Boone, you just got a little bit of rest. Let's just fire the ball straight to you, Justin Boone. Give me your bold prediction for this week.
All right, Fitz, you tell me if this is bold enough. Brock Bowers returns to the lineup with over 100 yards and a touchdown in this game. And if you don't think that's bold because he is one of the best tight ends in the league, let me tell you, last year during that incredible rookie season, he only went over 100 yards twice during that season. So this is definitely bold enough in my mind. We saw what he did in week 1. He was over 100 yards, basically did that in 3 quarters before he got hurt. Then he had some down games trying to play through the injury. Now he's coming back. I'm putting my faith in him. He's healthy, I hope, fingers crossed. And he gets a pretty good matchup, right? He's going against Jacksonville. This is a pretty good spot where Jacksonville, this is a defense that's given up a touchdown to a tight end in 3 of their last 4 outings. They're giving up the 13th most fantasy points to tight ends. Bowers played them last year. He had 99 yards in that game. So I think he's coming back with a huge game in his first contest of returning.
You know what? Everything that Chris is feeling about today's episode, I'm the opposite. I came in this morning very, very meh on my team, and now as the day has gone on, I am just excited.
They're going to get crushed.
4:25 Eastern kickoff. Okay, you know what? I was going to throw to Harmon next, but no, I'm going to throw to Chris Allen next. I don't want to hear what Harmon has to say. He's in timeout for a minute. Chris Allen, give me a bold prediction.
All right, so we've been talking about him throughout most of the show, but I'm going to continue to at least pound the table for Jackson Smith and Jigba with the amount of targets he's earning, how efficient he's been with those looks. Seeing him as the overall wide receiver 1 of week 9 should be a slam dunk at this point. So with the matchup against the Commanders and how well he's been playing, JSN overall wide receiver 1, that's my call for this week.
Harmon, give me your bold prediction for the week.
All right, Alec Pierce and Josh Downs combined for over 120 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. Look, this Steelers defense, you can beat them any which way, but particularly those 2 guys, they really line up as good matchups against this Steelers defense because Pierce is fast. The Steelers are old and slow, so I think he can get them over the top. And then they've also really struggled to cover guys in single man coverage. Especially if they're good route runners, quick hitters. That's exactly what Josh Downs is, and I love the way Downs has been getting involved as that red zone threat for this Indianapolis Colts. Love just using the best separator in tight spaces, so I think those guys go off against the Steelers defense.
Yeah, Steelers' season is dead in the water. Let's get to the hurry-up offense, bringing everybody together with your last-minute questions. We still got a few minutes, 25 seconds on the clock. Let's get some of these in. The first one comes in from Mike. Mike says, love the show. Need this win. God, we need it for you, brother. Dobbins, Dowdle, Allen, Diggs, BTJ, full PPR, sit one. Thanks. What do you think, Boone?
This is going to seem crazy based on the way the season has gone, but I'm going BTJ in this game. I think he is going to have a big contest. We know no Travis Hunter. And I'm telling everybody, before he got dinged up before the bye, he had a couple decent games. He was coming on. It's going to be a good rest of the season for BTJ starting this week.
All right, Chris, you're getting the next one. It comes from JV Davy or Javi Davi. I don't know. Drop Josh Downs from an on guy. Have Tajay starting due to bye week issues. Don't want to drop Brian Robinson Jr. just yet. Have JT Brees, Quinshawn, and Trey Benson, and B-Rob Jr. There's a lot of detail for you there, Chris Allen. What do you got?
No, I wouldn't want to drop Josh Downs from a nun guy. I would prefer to drop Brian Robinson Jr. I understand holding on to a guy that could potentially get some more volume should the starter go down, and that's why you're holding on to B-Rob, but still, not Josh Downs. Find somebody else.
All right, Mary Lee Taylor with the next question. This one's simple. Golf or dart? Ask FFL. I'll ask Harmon. What do you think?
Oh, man, again, another close call at the quarterback position. I think I'll go Jared Goff, though, in this one. It's an indoor game. We know that that's usually where Goff has his best moments. And that Minnesota defense right now, they're still making some plays. They're still creating some havoc, but there's just a lot of experience with this Lions defense and Goff going against them. So I'll go Minnesota. I'll go the player playing Minnesota in this one.
All right, the next one comes from 3450. Says PPR 12 team already down. Flowers, Odunze, Cook, Vidal locked in. Kraft tight end, who to flex? BTJ, Marks, Trey Henderson. Again, Chris Allen, you're getting all the detailed questions, like the War and Peace of questions. What do you got?
I'll go Travion Henderson in this one. If there's ever going to be a game that we can at least have some level of confidence in starting Travion Henderson, it should be this week. I'm trying not to be too concerned about all the practice squad guys they've called up, so I'll give Travion Henderson this one.
Mike Virginia with the next question. Really should be Meet Virginia would be more fun. Who sits between Dowdle at Green Bay, Knight at Dallas, Sharbs at Washington, non-PPR? What do you think, Boone?
I'm sitting Zach Charbonnet in that one, and it's pretty close between him and Knight, but Knight just has the much better matchup. I think he's got just as good of a shot to fall into the end zone, so going against that Cowboys defense, I'm going to go with him. And Dowdle, fingers crossed in that bad matchup, but we know Dowdle can produce, and we know that they're actually going to give him the touches this week.
Mason wants to ask us, Diggs or Ferguson have Kittle as starting tight end? What do you think, Harmon?
Yeah, I'll go Diggs on this one. Obviously getting the 0 spot from Ferguson last week. I don't expect to see that again, but Diggs has been really involved. He's been very good against man coverage this season, so I'll go Diggs on this one.
All right, and Coastal Elite with the comment of the day. Coastal Elite has come in and said, with the Rebel Lion, she cried more. Look, this show is dedicated to Rebel Lion, the single greatest rock band in the world that I'm about to start. Rebel Lion, one word. Looks a lot like Rebellion, but it's a lot different. We'll be back right here, obviously. That's it for this edition of Fantasy Football Live. You can check us out every Sunday morning at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, all the way up until kickoff to help you get your line set. And if you haven't checked us out during the week, you should. You can wake up with Yahoo Sports Daily. That's me and Caroline Fenton every single weekday from 9 to 11. Then also catch the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast live on Yahoo Fantasy YouTube. Good luck in your fantasy leagues this week. I hope you win and all of your enemies get their butts kicked. Come back, hang out with us again next week. Thanks for joining us.